Now, when we look at ancient documents, people ask lots of questions. How do we know it's genuine? It talks about history, it talks about personal history and incidents in Daniel's life. It also talks about the future. And Daniel talks about the future to his day. That is the future in the 2nd century BC, in the time of the Greeks. And he gets it so accurately right that many people say, well, of course, Daniel didn't live when he claims he lived. He lived 400 years later. And there's no such thing as predicting the future in the biblical sense. So this faces us with a hugely important question today. As you know, I'm a mathematician. I work in the sciences. And one of the biggest objections to the whole of the Christian faith and the biblical revelation that I meet from people is, look, you cannot possibly believe this stuff. Because the central claim of Christianity to start with, that God became human, that is supernatural. And the supernatural doesn't happen. And this book of Daniel, he claims to predict the future. Don't be ridiculous. This is not possible. No one can know history in advance. Well, we shall see. It's good to anchor things in history. And this is the way they wrote newspapers and records in the ancient world. They wrote these cylinders. And these are the Babylonian chronicles in the British Museum. And this one mentions the capture of Jerusalem in 507 BC. So we've actual historically inscribed cuneiform texts. Cuneos means a wedge. Cuneiform texts recording the events that are in Daniel. These are independent verifications of what is going on. So we've got a little bit of idea of the history, a little bit idea of the culture.
The evidence for a pre-2nd century Daniel is overwhelming. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, 8 separate manuscripts of the book of Daniel existed. Several were dated within the 1st or 2nd century BC, specifically 4Q Daniel C and 4Q Daniel E. Include the very prophetic portions of the text which secular scholars so emphatically declare could not have been written prior to the 2nd century, as they predict the future. But secular scholars cannot be correct. Why? With these copies being dated to the 1st or 2nd century BC, we know a few things. No apocalyptic literature was authored in the Qumran caves. None. The author at Christian think tank is this to say, think about this for a second. Let's say you are part of the team that is excavating the site and you find the scroll. You look at the handwriting layout and recognize it to be that customary to 150 to 100 BC. What are the possible dates of the origination of the content of that scroll? 1. Whoever wrote that scroll entered the content as they wrote it, making the date of the scroll identical to the date of the content and making the copy the autograph itself. 2. Whoever wrote the scroll made a copy from an antecedent scroll. A scroll itself older than the one you found by definition, making the content even older than the antecedent scroll, assuming that scroll writer didn't invent the content. Number 2, but the copy is made from someone reading orally the antecedent scroll. Some other things to consider is that the people who moved to the Qumran caves did so around 150 BC. They did not most likely have any interactions with anyone outside of the Qumran caves after this time. Thus, the text that they were copying, they were doing so to preserve and push these texts for later periods, and they weren't receiving any new text at the Qumran cave after 150 BC. Another thing of note is that the people at the Qumran caves also referred to Daniel as a prophet. In several of their writings, and they refer to him in a way that people only did for prophets like Ezekiel or Isaiah or Jeremiah, and it's very unlikely that they would be calling someone a prophet if the book was just written. The idea that the book of Daniel was written in like 166 BC, it's not historical. It's a fabrication, and the evidence makes it clear.